Good morning, class. My name is Henry Streeter, and today I will be presenting to you the golden mean theory by Aristotle. So let's get right into it. My objective for today will be to help you understand a little more about Aristotle, but more so his philosophy on the golden mean theory. So, here's a picture of it. Let me use my pointer. So here's a picture of Aristotle, a sculpture, I guess you could say. There were no cameras, obviously, and he's considered to be the father of science. That's just a nickname. There's some debates about him being the father of science. He also has a few other subtle nicknames like the philosopher, and another modest one like the master. So, growing up, Aristotle's dad was actually the royal doctor, from where he lived. As he grew up, he just wanted to know how things actually worked. Like, for example, how a chick grows in an egg, or why a cacti may grow in the desert but not the Arctic. And more importantly, what makes human life and society go well, and what is happiness and what people should be. So when he was 17, he went to Athens on a venture with Plato to the academy, where he studied for 20 years there and went on to find his own school called the Lyceum, which is also known as the Peripatetic, which is essentially a walkway, like a promenade. And this is they called it that because he oftentimes gave his lectures and his teachings walking down as people followed him. His followers were called the Peripatetics, which means the wanderers. Um, and moreover, he tutored Alexander the Great, who soon went on to conquer the known world. And so all the books that Aristotle that were salvaged from Aristotle or any of his writings were pretty much his lecture notes. So here's just a bit of his philosophies. Um, Humans are political and social beings. Moral action is possible only if society and community of our fellow humans is thoroughly ran. And to be a human means to live and interact with other humans. And the idea of goodness is a part of just our everyday and practical activity that should be done effortlessly. So let's get into the theory. The golden mean theory means, well, it is the moral behavior is the mean between two extremes. At one end is excess, and at the other is deficiency. Find a moderate position between those two extremes, and you will be acting morally. You will have virtue, as Aristotle would have said. And virtue is essentially a habit that allows you to flourish. And the opposite of that would be a vice, which is pretty much a habit that diminishes um, you flourishing as a human being. So, an example of a vice would be if I smoked cigarettes every day, that's a vice to my health. So, as I studied this theory, I also noticed that there were other thinkers throughout history that actually um, had their own, I guess you could say, theories on that were pretty similar. The most popular is actually Buddha. He has something called the middle way, and I didn't look too much into it, but um, you'll see maybe why it was called the middle way once I get more into the golden mean theory. So, and I also thought this theory really just captured the love and the harmony that Greeks had back then, and just the peace that they always wanted. So just imagine a person who always knows what to say, can diffuse a tense situation, can deliver tough news gracefully, is confident without arrogance, brave but not reckless, generous but not extravagant. Um, and that's pretty much, these are pretty much people that we all want to be around at all times, and people that Aristotle believed that we should want to be like. So here's a little chart to give you just a visual representation of the theory. So this balance here is the golden mean. So here's the mean, here's your excess, and here's your deficiency. So if you're here, you have that's the vice to this rashness here. So an example being courageous would be the deficiency and the excess would be if I liked a girl and every day I saw her, but I just said hello. And after I saw her, I went to my friends and said, "Wow, this girl is so beautiful. I really want to ask her on a date." That's that's the deficiency of the golden mean, whereas rashness is the excess, which would essentially be if I saw 50 girls and I asked 49 of them on a date. It's just the excess of this. So another example, let's see, we can go right here to honesty. So the perfect midpoint is to be honest, and failing to, it's pretty much this, excuse me, this secrecy is failing to say things that need to be said, and this loquacity, which is pretty much brutal honesty. So the loquacity um, part of it would is you don't need to tell someone that they have this huge pimple on their face. You know, it's knowing how to deliver the hard truth with grace, and how not to just crush someone's soul. So it's just knowing how to have that virtue, that balance, and that golden mean. So here's a little chart. And these four concepts really go into the golden mean. So for starters, we have proper functioning, and it's pretty much proper functioning is exactly what it says. Everything has a function, um, and a thing is good to the extent that it fulfills its functions, and bad that it doesn't. So a knife is used to cut, so a sharp knife would be would be a good knife, and a dull knife would be a bad knife. Another example would be a flower is to grow and reproduce. One that does this is a good flower, and one that doesn't is a bad flower. So this word I've been using here is virtue. So this concept, this theory pretty much has no midpoint. There's no midpoint, and it's pretty much like I said earlier, knowing how to deliver hard truths gracefully, and how to break down bad news gently, or to offer constructive criticism rather than soul crushing criticism. So that's being virtuous, just knowing when to say, what to say, how to say it, and simply to be virtuous. So how Aristotle saw virtue and the golden mean is doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, in the right amounts. And it's pretty vague, and it sounds like he's saying a bunch of nothing, but he also believed that there's no need to be specific, because you should know what is right and when to do it and the amount to do it in. So then we move on to practical wisdom, which is your character. Your character is developed um, through habituation. If you do a variety of things over and over, it'll eventually become part of your character. And knowing what to do, and pretty much practical wisdom come is street smarts. Excuse me. Yeah, practical wisdom is essentially street smarts, and you know the only way to become street smart is to be in the streets, I guess. So, um, it's pretty much emulating those who know how to be virtuous and watching them do it. And I know at first it may seem fake, but Aristotle believed that eventually this will become effortless, and it'll be a part of your character. And those people that you emulate and watch are actually called moral exemplars. So it's emulating one who is already virtuous. You learn by watching and then doing. So what if I have no desire to be the nice guy? What if I don't really care to um, be less obnoxious or more obnoxious or generous and so on and so forth? So I'm gonna just go back to another example. Generosity wouldn't be to give um, drugs to an addict or to buy drinks for everyone in a bar when you know you need that money for rent the next day. So, with that being said, um, Plato believed eudaimonia was essentially the pinnacle of humanity. And the short definition of it is a life well lived, human flourishing, virtue, and finding that golden mean. It's a to live a life that you're always pushing your limits. You're never done improving. Just having like going to bed at night and having the pleasure of just knowing you accomplished a lot, even if you're tired or didn't have any free time. Um, and Aristotle believed that a person that lived this way would be doing good things virtuously and within the golden mean. So like I said on um, the last slide, with the pinnacle of life of humanity, you will face disappointment, and it's knowing you pushed yourself to be the best person you could while honing your strengths and working on your weaknesses so that you can be virtuous, so that you can be within that golden mean, like on the chart before, so that you can exemplify um, courageousness, generosity, ambition, modesty, honesty, so on and so forth, so that um, you can be virtuous and so that you can strive. And with that being said, that's the end of my presentation, the golden mean theory. I hope you all enjoyed. Professor Dukes, thank you. I wish I had been in front of the class. I didn't do my presentation on camera because I don't have a haircut. I hope you all liked it. And yeah, love y'all. Streeter out.